briefly just introduce our speakers. Welcome to AHA session number 3, Careers in History, Variety of Discussion. My name is Aaron Mars. I'm a historian of the U.S. Department of State. I'm also the chairman of the American Historical Association's Graduate and Early Career Committee. Every year, the GECC sponsors a series of panels of interest to graduate students and historians starting out their careers. I'm delighted to have a distinguished panel here today to talk about the range of careers available to students of history. I will go ahead and introduce all of them now, and each of them will speak for about 10 or 15 minutes. We will then open the floor for discussion and questions. We're going to go in the order listed in the program. With one exception, we're going to do Dr. Kane first, because he is the only one of us brave enough to use PowerPoint in his presentation. Robert Kane is the chief historian at Air University, Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. He earned his PhD at the University of California, Los Angeles, and is the author of Disobedience and Conspiracy in the German Army, 1918 to 1945. He's also written Forging the Air Force Sword of the Global War on Terror, 1916. Dr. Kane taught history at the high school and collegiate levels, as well as within the Air Force system. He has presented scholarship at numerous conferences, including the American Historical Association, the Society of Military History, the Gulf South History and Humanities Society, and the Air Force Historical Symposium. Our next presenter will be Kevin Allen. Kevin is the Historic Curatorship Program Manager for the Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation. He earned an MA in Historic Preservation from the University of South Carolina, where he studied civil rights and the celebration of the Civil War centennial in the South. His previous positions include work at the Smithsonian and municipal and state preservation offices in North and South Carolina. He has nominated several properties to the National Register of Historic Places, performed a landscape assessment for a historic estate in England, and has made numerous presentations on preservation and his academic research to academic and civic groups. Stephen Lukert is the curator of the permanent exhibition at the Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington, D.C. He earned his PhD at the State University of New York, Binghamton. In addition to his responsibilities for the permanent exhibition at the Holocaust Museum, Dr. Lukert has curated many other exhibits there, including those on Nazi propaganda, Voyage of St. Louis, and Kristallnacht. He is the author of several books and articles accompanying these exhibitions. Dr. Lukert has presented his scholarship to diverse academic and civic groups and has appeared extensively on media outlets in the United States, Germany, Israel, and Spain. Nicholas Sarantakes is Associate Professor at the U.S. Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island. He earned his PhD from the University of Southern California and is the author of several books, including Keystone, The American Occupation of Okinawa and U.S.-Japanese Relations, Allies Against the Rising Sun, the United States, the British nations, and the Defeat of Imperial Japan, and most recently, Dropping the Torch, Jimmy Carter, the Olympic Boycott, and the Cold War. In addition to his scholarship, Dr. Sarantakes has made media appearances with newspapers and television in the United States, Britain, Canada, and Australia. He also maintains a blog, which I recommend to all of you, entitled In the Service of Cleo. Megan Stiffen-Marinoff is the University Archivist at Harvard University. She completed her master's degree at New York University and is also a certified archivist and a fellow of the Society of American Archivists. She has done consulting work for organizations throughout the Northeast, including a project for Boston University Medical School, which organized hundreds of feet of records for international aid organizations in Côte d'Ivoire. Her extensive professional service includes archival advisory work for the state of Massachusetts, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and the American Institute of Physics. Finally, she has made frequent presentations to professional groups on archival topics in the United States and Europe. Our last presenter today will be C. James Taylor, who is the editor-in-chief of the Adams Papers at the Massachusetts Historical Society. In that capacity, he has overseen the publication of 5 volumes to date of the papers of John Adams, 4 volumes of the Adams family correspondence, and has co-authored a separate publication of correspondence entitled My Dearest Friend, Letters of Abigail and John Adams. He also serves as the editor's chair of the Founding Fathers Papers Incorporated, a consortium of papers projects of the major founders, including papers of Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, James Madison, Ben Franklin, and the Adams Papers. Dr. Taylor earned his PhD from the University of Tennessee and previously served as an editor of the papers of Henry Lawrence at the University of South Carolina. He is active in the Association for Documentary Editing, including serving as the editor of their journal from 1993 to 1997. And so, without further ado, our first presenter, Bob King.
I've done a number of PowerPoint presentations, and we even go to almost a little PowerPoint. I'm the senior historian for Air University. It's touted as the center of leadership and intellectual development for the United States Air Force, and it's located at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama. In our career field, we have something like 220 positions, ranging in grades GS7 to GS15. There's only like one or two of those. Salaries range from around $30,000 to $100,000 or more, but it doesn't include locality pay. Now, most people get the 14%, and in high cost of living areas, it's higher. The way to apply for one of these positions is basically the Air Force started a new process. All positions are advertised on usajobs.gov. Just key in historian and give you instructions on what positions are open and how to file an online resume. Most locations are located at the wing level. That is the Air Force base. Most of them are GS11 and GS12. GS12, beginning GS12, civil servant earns around $52,000 to $53,000, which does not include the locality pay. Usually at the wing level, it's one deep, no administrative staff. You work, the wing historians work for the director of staff, the chief of staff, who is basically part of the commander's staff. We do have policy guidance for the Air Force History Program set by the Air Force Office of History, which is located in Washington, D.C. area. There are several offices, so one's in the Pentagon, one's in Acosta, so there's different places within the D.C. area. Also, some may be familiar with the National Museum of the U.S. Air Force at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Those positions are in the career program. You can go online, you can put in Air Force Museum, History Museum Program, and we get the hits to the websites. In addition to the big museum, where they have lots of airplanes and do restoration on historic aircraft, the Air Force also has 12 field museums, so it's not just historians, it's archivists, museum curators, and so on. And many bases have what they call heritage centers, and which are usually filled by historians or museum curators, those kinds of individuals. What do we do? Well, our basic function is to write the periodic annual history of the unit that we are in. I'm the chief historian for Air University. I have two GS11 historians who work for me. I also sometimes have a term employee for administrative support. And we do research, we get documents, and we write the history, what the unit did in the previous year. We also provide reference services. People will call in, send us emails. I'd like to know about some historical person that was there at Maxwell or Air University or even General Air Force history questions, and we do research and respond. We provide short historical studies. We conduct oral interviews with key personnel, usually the wing commander or a senior commander. Sometimes, if we have time, there's other key individuals. We participate in outreach programs. Many Air Force bases will have an annual or semi-annual or biannual open house, and usually we will assist in setting up some of the programs that deal with Air Force history. Just to One of the things that at one time, before 2005, all the Air Force historians were military, middle ranking in non-commissioned officers. But since 2004, they began civilianizing, converting those military positions to civilians. Well, the civilians in those positions have a deployment, in certain positions have a deployment requirement. That means they get to go over to Iraq and Afghanistan, Qatar, and Kuwait, and they write the history of the units that are in those places. Most of the history offices on the Air Force bases have a repository of documents. We also usually have copies of past unit histories and reference material to conduct research for inquiries that we are asked. This is a further explanation, provide information. So we get all kinds of questions. There would be, for example, somebody, what's the origins or historical significance of some of the old buildings on Air Force Base? For example, I don't know, have you ever been to Hickam Air Force Base? Some of the hangars there on the flight line are the hangars that were machine gunned by Japanese aircraft on December 7, 1941, and the bullet holes in the buildings are still there. And so we get at the questions about that. One of the unique things that we do that civilian historians, academic historians don't do is we help the unit history, a very, what I call a thumbnail, a strawman history of an organization from its origins, from its beginning, and we traces its name changes and provide additional information. We also provide advice for a unit that wants to develop an emblem. This is just one example of what you see there in the presentation. Outreach is very important. Like I said, we do help. We set up exhibits at open houses. Sometimes the commander will have something at his residence, and he wants a historical display. So we will help set that up. Training. Now, the Air Force History Program does not train people to write, to be historians. We're looking for qualified historians. What the training does is basically a 2-week course on how to write the Air Force, the periodic history in a standard format. One time I was at the Historical Research Agency, which is also at Maxwell. I've had lots of experience in dealing with past histories, and up until 1984, there was no specific format, no requirement of what to put, the minimum requirement. So, the history course, the basic course, shows those who accepted and hired how to write periodic history. Later on, there's a 2-week course called the contingency course that shows people how to write the contingency history. They're deployed for 4 months, and they're not expected to write a full-blown history. They're basically data collection, and the contingency history shows what data to collect and how to format. You can see the statistics there. Everyone has to have a bachelor's degree in history. It really doesn't matter what field. It just has to be history. However, as you can see, that we do strongly emphasize advanced degrees. 35% of the career field have masters, and 40% have PhDs. And if a person that gets into the program with only a bachelor's degree, they are encouraged to get a higher degree. They also encourage us to do outside professional development. It was read, I have given papers, it's cited in history. This is the 3rd opportunity in the last 6 years that I've had to give a presentation on the Air Force History Program here at AHA. And these are the kinds of things they encourage us to write. Now, many historians do not get an opportunity to write a full book with all the things going on, but we do write short articles. I don't know, I've written a number of short articles for ABC, published in ABC Clio encyclopedias. I've written a few short pamphlets, and I'm presently going to have a couple of research projects that I'm trying to find. I I've been in this position for about 4 weeks, so I'm just kind of learning the ropes of the current job, but I do have a couple of projects that I'm planning to work on. Now, as I mentioned, up to 2004, most of the wing historic positions were military, and the military could be sent over and deployed over there with no real issues. But with the conversions to pagans, it's a different ballgame. When a person is hired as a civilian historian into the Air Force History Program, if the position is coded for deployment, the person hired must sign a mobility statement as a condition of work. It's a binding contract. And there's a schedule when people deploy. And there's training that people have to do before they deploy. They just don't send people over there. I tell people, this, by the way, the real reason I want to do this PowerPoint is to show you this picture. This is Dr. Chuck Merkel, buddy of mine down at Eglin Air Force Base. He just came back about 4 months ago from a 4-month deployment to Afghanistan. And here's the armor, the flak jacket. You can't see it, but he does have a pistol on the side. The weapons training is provided. All that's, but he was out flying around with the commanding general in East Afghanistan, and so they all wear the get-up. It's a standard 120 days, 4 months. Now, it can be a little bit longer because the person over there can't leave until the person coming to replace them gets there. They want a positive turnover. Normally, work hours, now my work schedule is 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. If they ask me working beyond that as a civil servant, I get paid overtime. Since they don't pay overtime, I get comp time with additional leave time. When they're over deployed historians, their normal is 6 to 7 days, normally 10 to 12 hours. They do pay overtime. And I've just recently, when this all started, there was a question of whether or not this additional pay was considered hazardous duty pay. In the same vein, does military get it? Well, the law has been changed. Civilians the pay civilians get over the combat area is considered hazardous duty pay, which means it's exempt from income tax for the period that you're working. And this can pay for this overtime can pay for your son or daughter one semester of college. Some real quick, websites. The Air Force History Office has published a number of publications on Air Force history. You can find them at the first website, the Air Force Historical Research Agency. If you want to check that out, there's the website. And as I said, starting about 3 months ago, if you're interested to apply, go to usajobs.gov, and that's where you can find the vacancies and apply. If anyone would like a copy of this presentation, Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, K-A-N-E, at maxwell.af.mil. Just let me know you're at the presentation here, and I will email it to you.
Thank you.